She cooked his breakfast every morning for 7 years. She ironed his shirts. She packed his daughter's school bag. She stayed quiet when his mother called her the help. In the morning, he finally threw her out of his own kitchen, calling her a maid in front of the whole family. His mother clapped. His younger sister smiled into her phone. His wife, the one he chose over her, walked past in a red dress and didn't even look down. Nobody in that house knew that the woman holding the wooden spoon had signed a $40 billion deal 6 hours earlier in a boardroom on the other side of the city. Nobody except one old man, the gardener standing by the mango tree. He put down his shears, he wiped his hands, and when he opened his mouth, every smile in that kitchen died in the same second. But we are not there yet. We are going to walk into that kitchen together, and I promise you, by the time we walk out, you will never again confuse a quiet woman for an empty one. Now let me ask you something before we begin. Have you ever watched a family tear a woman apart at her own table? Not in a movie, not on the news, real. Where the plates are still on the table, the tea is still warm, and the man doing the shouting is the same man who slept next to her the night before. Have you seen that? Because what happened in that kitchen on Bellwater Crescent in Lagos on the morning of the 13th was that exact kind of brutal. Not loud brutal, quiet brutal. The kind that smiles while it cuts. The day before, the rain had stopped at lunchtime, the kind of half-rain common to Lagos in June. The sun came back, but the compound was still wet. The grass held little lakes of water that caught the light like mirrors. The cook, Adeze, was standing at the long kitchen counter at 6 in the morning, the way she always stood. White apron tied twice at the waist, hands steady. Pepper soup on the stove for the senior brother of the house, Emeka, because Adeze always had his breakfast ready before he came down to insult her. Let me pause and tell you who is in this story so your eyes know where to land. Emeka is the head of the house. 44 years old, tall, Lagos accent polished at King's College, then abroad, then back. Family money older than Nigeria itself. The kind of money that thinks it is God and has been told so enough times to start believing it. His mother, Mama Chika, 71, sits in the parlor every morning with her tea and her Bible and her pearls. His younger sister, Ihuoma, 28, unmarried, lives in the main house, sharp mouth, sharper phone camera. His wife, Titilope, 26, ex-model turned creative director. The woman Emeka chose over Adeze 3 years ago when he decided the quiet one had become furniture. And Adeze, 29, the cook, the house help, the girl his mother introduced to him as a good girl from a good family, but no money. So just bring her in, she can be useful. She had been useful for 7 years. She had washed, cooked, cleaned, folded, packed, planned children's birthdays, paid the market traders quietly out of her own pocket when the house account ran dry. She had raised Emeka's daughter almost as much as Titilope had. And not one person in that compound called her by name. They called her the girl, the help. Adeze, come and clear. That was the sound of her in that house. The sound of a name used like a tool. Emeka came down the stairs at 6:12. He was already angry. You could tell from the shoes. He had put on shoes before breakfast, which in that house only happened when he was about to do something cruel for an audience. Titilope was behind him, in the red dress and bare feet, hair still wet from the shower. Ihuoma came out of the parlor with her phone already lifted, red dot glowing. Mama Chika did not come out. She did not need to. She had trained her son too well. She only had to watch. Emeka stopped in the middle of the kitchen. He didn't speak first. He picked up the wooden spoon from the counter. He looked at the soup. He looked at Adeze. He dropped the spoon into the pot so hard that pepper soup splashed onto the stove, onto the wall, onto Adeze's white apron. Then he smiled. The smile was the worst part. Adeze, his voice was soft. The soft voice was always the worst voice. "Tell me again why you were standing in my kitchen at 6 in the morning?" She looked at him. She did not flinch. "Because the soup." "I did not ask you about the soup." He leaned on the counter. "I am asking you, who told you that you were allowed to stand in my kitchen, in my house, on my compound, and pretend you were something you were not? Tell me, who told you that?" Adeze put the spoon down. She wiped her hands on the apron once, slow, the way a woman wipes her hands when she has already decided something. "Emeka," she said. One word, just his name, that was all. Ihuoma laughed from the doorway. She lifted her phone higher. "You see the way she stands, Titilope? Like she owns the cooker? Let me ask her who exactly she thinks she is." Titilope didn't laugh. Titilope smiled the smaller smile. The smile of a woman who knew she had won something small and wanted to keep it small. Adeze finished wiping her hands. She unfolded the apron. She laid it folded on the counter. She looked once around the kitchen she had run for 7 years. The pots, the plates, the photo of Emeka's daughter Ngozi that Adeze had framed and put next to the spice rack, because she thought a kitchen should have a child's smile in it. She looked at that photo for 1 full second. Then she turned back to Emeka. "Sister," she said to Ihuoma, not madam, not Oga's sister, just sister. One word, equal. "If your phone is recording, I want you to keep it recording. I want you to keep the sound on, because I am about to tell your brother something that is going to be expensive for him to hear, and he is going to want to pretend later that he didn't hear it." Ihuoma blinked. The first crack in the morning. Emeka's smile fell a 1/4 inch. Adeze reached into the pocket of the apron she had just folded. She pulled out a slim black envelope. No logo, plain. The kind that lawyers send when they don't want the messenger to know what's inside. She placed it on the counter between the pot of soup and the photo of Ngozi. "I am not standing in your kitchen, Emeka. I am standing in my own kitchen, on my own compound, on the morning of my own company signing." She put one finger on the envelope. Bellwater Group is the parent company that absorbed Bellwater Holdings. Bellwater Holdings is your father-in-law's family business. The one Titilope's father told you at the wedding, with a straight face, that he was bringing into the marriage. The one you have been telling everyone at the club is worth 40 million when it is worth 4. The one that has been propped up by a quiet buyer for 2 years while the partners quietly drained the cash and left you with the debt. Titilope's smile disappeared, not slowly, the way a light goes out. "The buyer," Adeze said, "is named Adeze Okeke. I am Adeze Okeke. I have been Adeze Okeke since I was 22 years old. Your mother introduced me to this house as a good girl, but no money. Your mother was wrong about the second half. I forgive her for the first half because she believed it. Your father-in-law told you a lie on your wedding night, and you swallowed it whole. There is nothing left to forgive there. It was just business." She looked at Titilope. "And you, sister, you came into this house in a red dress because you thought I was the help. I never was the help. I was always the chef. The difference between the two is that the help goes home at night, and the chef decides whose name is on the deed when she wakes up." She did not raise her voice once. Not once. She kept her voice at the exact same volume as the soup. Mama Chica came to the parlor door. She heard the last 3 lines. She heard Adeze Okiki. She heard parent company. Her Bible slipped out of her hand and hit the marble floor with the loudest sound that parlor had made in 30 years. Mama Chica had been the one to bring Adeze into the house. She had been the one to say, "Use her, but don't marry her." She had been the one to clap 3 years ago when Emeka brought Titilope home. She had been the one to tell Adeze at the back door every week, "Remember your place, my daughter." She had been wrong about her place, too. Mama Chica opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The first time in 71 years. Adeze turned to the doorway. Behind Ihuoma, half hidden by the propped door, stood the old gardener. His name was Babatunde. He had worked the compound for 11 years. He had been there before Emeka's father built the second wing. He had been there before Titi Lope. He had been there before everything except the mango tree he pruned every morning. Adeze had bought the compound. Babatunde knew it. He had known it for 2 years. He had been instructed by Adeze's own lawyer never to say a word until she said, and he had honored it. "Baba," Adeze said softly, "you can put the shears down now. We are finished pretending." Babatunde set the shears against the wall. He walked to the kitchen door. He stood next to Ihuoma, not speaking, just present, the way honest men get to stand when the women they protected finally stop hiding. Ihuoma lowered her phone. She did not press stop. That recording was now evidence, and she didn't yet know whose side evidence was on. Adeze took one step toward the front door. Emeka moved first. His hand caught her arm. Hard. The grip of a man whose money had just been told it was not his. "Adeze, sit down. We are going to talk about this like a family." She did not pull her arm back. She looked at his hand on her skin. Then she looked up into his face. "Emeka," she said, "I have been talking to you like a family for 7 years. You ate my food. You wore the shirts I ironed. You let your daughter call me Mama when Titi Lope was too busy on Instagram to read her a bedtime story. You have been talking to me like furniture for 7 years. Family doesn't work like that. Family doesn't get ignored at the kitchen table for 7 years and then grabbed by the arm when it finally stands up. So I am not going to sit down. You are going to let go of my arm. And you are going to sign what is in that envelope before the lawyers from the other side of town arrive at 9. Because if I have to bring the lawyers here, in front of Ngozi, who is upstairs and is going to wake up any minute and ask her mother why the strange men are in the kitchen, I will. And I will not protect you from that conversation. I never protected you from anything. I just never told you I was the one doing the protecting." Emeka let go, not because she asked, because his fingers stopped working. Titi Lope was already moving toward the stairs. She was going for her father on the phone. The father who had lied at the wedding. The father who had been running from this moment for 2 years. She didn't make the stairs. Babatunde was standing at the bottom. He had been there the whole time. He looked at her once. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The way a man stands in a doorway when he has decided no one passes without permission is louder than any sentence. She stopped. She sat on the 3rd step like a child being told to wait for punishment. Adeze walked out of the kitchen. She walked out of the parlor. She walked past Mama Chica, who had not picked up her Bible. She walked out the front gate of her own compound where the black car from her lawyer's office was idling. She opened the back door. She sat in the back seat. She closed the door with her own hand. She had been driven in staff cars for 7 years. She had never once, in 7 years, opened or closed a car door at that gate. That was the moment I want you to hold. A quiet woman does not slam doors. She closes them softly. That is the entire sound of victory in that compound. The lawyer who stepped out of the driver's side was a woman. Her name was Auntie Bola. She had been Adeze's lawyer for 9 years. She had drafted the first Adeze business registration when Adeze was 22, working nights in a co-working space at Yaba. She had watched the quiet woman build the empire in silence. She had never written a single press release. She had never put the name Adaeze Okeke on a billboard. She had never let Adaeze's photo be printed in the business pages. Because Adaeze had told her once, in that same quiet voice, "Bola, when I am ready, the world will not be looking. That is the only way it works." And so they had built in silence for 7 years, and on this morning, the world had not been looking. Now let me take you back 7 years, because that is where the real story lives. The part before the kitchen. The part before the envelope. The part where the sparrow learned to fly in a country that does not always let sparrows fly. Adaeze was born in Nsukka, in a small compound at the edge of a long red road. Her mother was a teacher. Her father was a junior civil servant who drank more than his salary could hold. When Adaeze was 11, her father came home one night and sold the standing freezer her mother had paid for in installments. He sold it to buy drinks for the men at the beer parlor. Her mother stood in the kitchen doorway and did not cry. She just said, very quietly, "Adaeze, come here. Look at this. Remember this. A man who sells what his wife pays for with her own hands will one day try to sell what his daughter pays for, too. So you build things he cannot sell. You build things in your own name. Do you hear me, baby? In your own name." Adaeze heard her. She was 11. At 14, her mother fell sick. The kind of sickness that takes a long time and takes the money faster. Adaeze started selling roasted groundnut on the road by the bus stop after school. Then she added zobo. Then she added akara. By 16, she had 3 girls working under her, all younger than her, all in school uniforms, and she had opened a small account at the cooperative society in town. By 17, the account had enough for her mother to get one more round of treatment. It was not enough to save her, but it was enough to give her mother 4 more months on a chair by the window, watching the road, drinking gari, telling Adaeze every morning, "You see that little bird on the fence, baby? That's not the loud one. That's the one with the most children. The quiet ones always have more children because they don't waste energy on noise." Adaeze's mother died on a Tuesday. Adaeze was 19. She buried her with money she had earned, not given. She sat at the window that night, not crying, just sitting. And she made herself a promise. The same kind of promise her mother had made her make at 11. A new version. I will not be poor. Not because money is God, because I never again want to be in a room where someone who earned nothing gets to decide what I am worth. She moved to Lagos. She cleaned offices at night on Awolowo Road. She worked at a burukutu joint during the day and took home the leftovers to eat. So her rent was only transport and 1 plate of rice. She went to Yaba co-working in the evenings. The matron there, a woman called Mama Tech, let her sit in the corner with a laptop she had bought used for 20,000 naira. Mama Tech charged her 500 a week to use the Wi-Fi. By the end of the first year, Adaeze had built a small wholesale supply chain for tomatoes from the north to restaurant owners in Lagos, using a single phone, a notebook of contacts her mother had given her, and the prices in her head. By the end of the second year, she had 3 refrigerated trucks and 1 warehouse. By the end of the third year, she had incorporated the company as Adaeze Okeke Holdings, registered under her name with her own photograph on the CAC papers, and she had put her mother on the wall of the office. Then, Mama Chika came. Through a family friend, a pastor. The pastor told Adaeze, "My sister, I have a good family. They need help in the house. A good girl like you, no money. You go and be useful. It will bless you." Mama Chika came to see Adaeze at the Yaba office. She didn't know what the office was. Adaeze had not told her. She had told Mama Chica she was between things. Mama Chica had nodded the way Lagos rich people nod when they have decided you are small. And Adeze walked into the kitchen at Bellwater Crescent the next Monday. White apron, 2 ties at the waist, pepper soup on the stove at 6 in the morning. The bells, the whistles, the invisible cap on top of her head that said, below. For 7 years, she woke at 5. She was in the kitchen by 6. She paid the traders from her own pocket. She taught Ngozi her letters between 7 and 7:30 every morning. She washed Emeka's suits by hand because the dry cleaner ruined the shoulders. She planned the family birthdays, anniversaries, and naming ceremonies without being asked, because every Nigerian family ends up needing one quiet woman in the back to remember the dates no one else can. And she did it all with the smile of a woman who had things to do after the kitchen closed. Because she did. She had board meetings at 9 on Zoom. She had supplier calls at 10. She had a warehouse audit at 2. She had a private equity partner at 4. And at night, after everyone in Bellwater Crescent had gone to sleep, she sat in the small room behind the kitchen that the family had given her as the help's quarters, and she opened her laptop, and she worked until 2 in the morning, the wooden spoon sitting on her desk next to the laptop because she had refused, on principle, to pretend the kitchen was not her first love, too. She never let the house know. Not because she was ashamed, because she understood the trap. The trap is this. The moment the Loud family hears you are quiet and rich, they will ask you for the money before they say good morning. They will turn the spice rack into a guest house. They will turn the wooden spoon into a share certificate. They will call you our small big sister. They will never again call you Adeze. And a woman who has built an empire in silence does not give the silence away to a house that calls her the help. So she waited. For 7 years she waited, not for revenge, for the right moment. The moment when the family would finally, in front of witnesses, try to erase her in public. Because in Lagos, public erasure is the only erasure you can undo in court. Let me tell you about one Saturday in year 4 that almost broke her. 3 of Emeka's friends came for lunch. They sat at the long dining table. Adeze served the food. Emeka, in front of all 3, said, "My darling Adeze, the food is good, as usual. Sometimes I think the only useful thing in this house is the cook. If only I had married the kitchen instead of a queen." The 3 men laughed. Mama Chica smiled into her plate. Titi Lope, who was not yet in the picture but would be 1 year later, sent a smile from the couch. Adeze stood at the side of the table with the serving spoon in her hand. She did not laugh. She did not cry. She did not correct him. Because she knew that if she corrected him in front of the men, she would lose the kitchen. And if she lost the kitchen, she would lose access to Ngozi, who was upstairs sleeping. And Ngozi was the reason she stayed. Because Adeze had made a promise to herself in year 1, the same kind she made at 11. "I will not leave this child. Whoever leaves this house next, it will not be me and it will not be Ngozi." She went back to the kitchen. She finished the dishes. She made chamomile tea for the men. She walked upstairs. She sat on the edge of Ngozi's bed. She watched her breathe. And she whispered, not to the child, but to the God her mother had taught her, "I am still here. I am still building. I am still here." That is what the 7 years looked like from the inside. Not a punishment, a vow. But let me also tell you, without softening it, that the kitchen hurt. The kitchen hurt every single day. Not the labor she loved, the pepper, the soup, the sound of Ngozi's laughter above the floor. The hurt was the quiet. The hurt was being paid in insults at the end of every month when the salary came. Because Mama Chica always said the salary was too much for a girl who has no children to feed. The hurt was being told at family gatherings to use the back entrance when the visitors came. The hurt was watching Ihuoma, who had never worked a day in her life, post on Instagram from Adese's own kitchen with the wooden spoon in her hand, captioned, "Cooking Therapy," and getting 10,000 likes. Adese didn't report it. She didn't argue. She didn't even look at the post. She just quietly ordered 2 more wooden spoons from the market because she knew Ihuoma would lose hers within a week. Year 5 came. Titilope came. Emeka's smile widened, then narrowed. Titilope was sharp, beautiful, photogenic, and most importantly in that house, loud. She filled the rooms with her voice, so much that Adese's quiet became invisible by comparison. The house started treating Adese like a piece of equipment, the fridge that's there until the power goes. Emeka, in those months, started telling his friends at the club, "My wife is a creative director. The help runs my kitchen. Best of both worlds." He didn't see the cruelty. He didn't see that his father-in-law, on the night of the wedding, had sat him down and told him a story about Bellwater Holdings being worth $40 million, when it was actually a hollowing shell, with $2 million in the bank and $7 million in debt. He didn't see that Titilope's father was using the marriage to buy time for the family to quietly sell off the assets before the company collapsed. He didn't see that the man planning dinner was the man being eaten at dinner. He just saw Adese in the kitchen, and he thought, loyal. Year 6 came. Ngozi started calling Adese Mama Adese. Emeka heard it. He didn't correct it. Mama Chika heard it. She did. She sat Adese down one evening in the parlor, after the others had gone out, and she said, "Adese, my daughter, this child is confused. You will stop answering her when she calls you that. You will not encourage this. You are the help. Act like the help. I am saying this to you gently because I do not want to make it ugly." Adese sat there. She looked at the pearls at Mama Chika's throat. She looked at the Bible on the side table. She looked at the photo of Emeka on the wall. She looked at the floor. Then she looked at Mama Chika and said, "Mama, I hear you. But Ngozi is not confused. Ngozi is the only person in this house who knows what a mother sounds like." Mama Chika did not answer. She hadn't been insulted. She had been outworked. There is no comeback for being outworked in your own parlor, in front of your own portrait. Year 7 came. The company was done. Bellwater Holdings was a name on a door and a debt on a spreadsheet. Emeka did not know. The partners had hidden it from him. They had been hiding it from him for 3 years. They had invited Adese's group, the only silent buyer with patience in Lagos, to absorb the company quietly because they could not afford a public collapse. They had offered Adese the deal because she had the cleanest balance sheet and the smallest mouth in the city. They had not asked her name. They had not asked if she was the cook. They had not asked because Adese had never used her own name in any of the public papers. The acquiring company was registered under the name AO Holdings, a quiet 2-letter name she had chosen at 23 because she remembered a poem her mother used to read her about the smallest letters being the loudest words. So when Mama Chika introduced her as a good girl, no money, no problem, it was, by the cruel comedy of the universe, the truth. Adese was good. Adese had no money she was willing to show. And Adese, by then, had no problem with any of them because she was about to take their problem and put her own name on top of it. The signing was scheduled for Tuesday, 9 in the morning, 6 hours before the kitchen confrontation. Adese sat at the head of the long glass table in the boardroom of her own office building in Victoria Island. Her lawyers on either side, the partners of Bellwater Holdings on the other side. The media was kept outside because the deal had been done in silence for 2 years and was to remain silent until the registration papers were filed. Adese signed her own name, Adese Okeke, the principal owner of the acquiring group. The partners signed, the registration was filed. The building, the assets, the debt, the staff, the contracts, the entire story of the Bellwater name became hers, by law, by the morning of the 13th. The lawyer texted her one line, "Done." She replied, 2, "Thank you." She closed her laptop. She called Baba Tunde. "It is time, Baba." Baba Tunde said only one word, "When?" Adeze said, "Now, but tomorrow, in the kitchen, before the soup." Baba Tunde knew what she meant. He had been waiting 2 years for the word now. She drove home. She parked in the staff lot, not the main lot, because she had never, in 7 years, used the main lot. She walked into the kitchen through the back door. She put on the apron. She lit the stove. She put the pepper soup on to cook. She greeted Mama Chica. "Mama, good morning." She greeted Emeka. "Oga, good morning." She greeted Ihuoma. "Good morning, sister." She kissed Ngozi on the forehead when the little girl came down at 6:30, and Ngozi said, "Mama Adeze, your soup is making my tummy happy." Adeze said, "Go get your school bag, my love." She picked up the wooden spoon. She stirred the soup. She waited for 6:12. She watched the clock. She knew what was coming. She had been writing the script in her head every morning for 7 years. And now it was 12 minutes past 6, and Emeka walked down the stairs. So let me walk you back to the morning. The kitchen, the apron, the envelope, the spoon in the soup, the lawyer's car idling outside, Titi Lope sitting on the 3rd stair, Ihuoma's phone still recording, Mama Chica without her Bible, Emeka without his voice, Baba Tunde standing at the back door like a witness who had been paid in silence for 11 years. And Ngozi, the only clean thing in that compound, still sleeping upstairs because Adeze had tucked her in the night before, with the song they sang together, the Sparrow Song. Except Adeze had always, in the gentle version they shared, called it the Good Morning Bird. By 9 o'clock, the lawyers from both sides were in the parlor. Adeze's lawyers sat on the long sofa. The Bellwater lawyers, who had been Emeka's lawyers and were now Adeze's because of the registration that morning, sat on the smaller chairs, and did not make eye contact with Emeka because the file in their hands had a header that had changed at 6:58 that morning, and they had not yet found the words to explain it. Emeka stood in the middle of the room. He had not been offered a chair. He had not known he would not be offered a chair. He had not known until the lawyer handed him the single-page summary that his father's company had technically belonged to the woman he had mocked at the breakfast table for 7 years. He had not known until the summary was in his hand, and the summary said in plain English that Bellwater Holdings was now a wholly owned subsidiary of AO Holdings, and the sole director and ultimate beneficial owner of AO Holdings was one Adeze Okike, professionally known as the principal of AO Group, and the principal had signed her name at 9:02 that morning in Victoria Island. He looked up. He looked at Adeze. Adeze was in the same apron, because she had taken the suit off in the kitchen after she had signed the deal, and she had put the apron back on, because the apron was also hers. And she had decided in the last 7 years that the suit and the apron were both her uniform, and a woman who owns her own uniform owns her own room. He looked at her. He did not speak. For the first time in 7 years, he did not speak, because he understood, in his body before he understood in his mind, that speaking would be a request, and he had nothing she needed. Adeze looked at him. She did not hate him. Hating him would mean he had been her equal for 7 years, and he had not. She forgave him before 9:15, not because he asked, because holding the weight cost the one holding it. And Adeze was, that morning, taking flight for the first time in 7 years, and she would not strap his weight onto her wings. She picked up the envelope. She picked up the photo of Ngozi from the spice rack. She looked at it once. She walked to Emeka. She placed the photo in his hand, face up. "This is your daughter," she said. "She is not on the list of assets. She is on no acquisition paper. She is yours to keep, Emeka. But if you raise your voice in front of her the way you raised it in front of me, the next envelope will be different. And the lawyers will come back. And I will not be in the apron when they do." She said it with a smile. The smile was not cruel. It was the smile of a woman who had learned from her mother that the deepest kind of war is the one fought with kindness. She took the apron off. She folded it once. She placed it on the counter next to the empty soup pot. She did not put it in the drawer. She left it on top, on the counter, open, so that when Mama Chica came back into the kitchen at the end of the day, she would see it and know, without being told, that the woman who wore it for 7 years had left, and had left by choice, and had left because the apron was a thing she owned, not a thing she was. Titi Lope spoke first. "Adeze?" Her voice was the smallest it had ever been. "What about me?" Adeze did not turn around. She was standing at the back door. Babatunde was holding it open for her. "Sister," she said, "your father lied to my employer on his wedding night. Your husband, my Oga, has been pretending to be the rich man your father told him to pretend to be. And you have been posting this kitchen on Instagram as if it were yours. It was never yours, Titi Lope. None of it was ever yours. The red dress, the rings, the bedroom, it was borrowed. Borrowed from a company that is now mine. And I am not asking for it back, because I would not wear borrowed cloth. I am just telling you, sister, so that when your father's phone rings in the next 6 weeks and the man at the other end tells him the Bellwater name has been removed from the door, you will remember this morning, and you will know it was not a stranger who took your house. It was the cook. And you didn't even let her eat at her own table." She walked through the door. Babatunde closed it behind her. He did not look at the family. He had looked at this family for 11 years. He had nothing more to learn from them. The black car drove her to Victoria Island. She sat in the back seat with the wooden spoon in her hand. The lawyer asked her if she wanted to make a statement. Adeze said, "Not today. Maybe next year." The lawyer asked her if she wanted to be on the cover of any magazine. Adeze said, "When Ngozi is old enough to read it and understand what her mother did. Not before." The lawyer asked her if she wanted to change her name on the company. Adeze said, "Never. It was my mother's name before it was mine. It will be my daughter's name after me." The names that come from quiet women stay quiet and stay standing. One last place, not the kitchen, not Victoria Island, a small compound outside Nsukka, on the same long red road, in the same small house where her mother had taught her to watch the quiet bird. The house had been bought, quietly, in year 3. Adeze had not told the family about it because the family was not the family she was building a home for. She had told her mother, in the way she had told her mother, by going to the grave and sitting next to it for an hour and whispering, "I did it, Mama. I bought it with my own hands. I named it with your name. I put the freezer back in the kitchen." The freezer was standing, new, bigger, with a padlock, because Mama Adeze's mother had sold the last one to a beer parlor, and Adeze had put a lock on this one because the men in her family, the men who sold what women bought, did not get to enter this kitchen. She parked the black car in front of the small house. She got out. She walked in. The kitchen was small. The walls were yellow. The wooden spoon from the Legos kitchen was in her hand. She placed it next to the new stove. She filled the pot with water. She put in salt. She put in pepper. She did not add too much. She made a small plate of food. She sat by the window, the same window her mother had sat by, the window that looked out on the same red road. The same small brown bird was on the fence by the gate, the same one her mother had pointed to. Adeze did not point. She just watched. She watched the bird for a long time. She did not cry. She had no tears left from 7 years. She only had the quiet. She whispered to the bird, "Mama, your daughter doesn't work in anyone's kitchen anymore. Your daughter is the one whose kitchen the whole city works in now." The bird tilted its head. Then it flew away. She stood up. She walked to the garden at the back of the compound. The soil was red, the kind that grows tomatoes in 3 weeks if you treat it right. She knelt down. She pressed one seed into the earth. The seed was a small, dry corn seed from her mother's storage. The last one Mama had planted before she died. Adeze had carried it in her pocket for 10 years. She pressed it in. She covered it. She patted it once, gently, the way her mother used to pat her hair by the window. She placed the wooden spoon on the fence post above the seed, facing the open sky, the way you face a flag at your own house on your own day. She went inside. She made tea. She took it to the step. She sat down. She opened her laptop. She had emails from 12 companies asking her to lead their boards. She closed the laptop. She drank the tea. She watched the road. A quiet woman is not an empty one. Don't you ever forget it. If Adeze's silence taught you anything tonight, don't keep it to yourself. Like this story, subscribe, share it with someone who is right now standing in someone else's kitchen, being called the help, being told her place, being seen as a tool and not a person. Tell her the sparrow was never small because she was weak. Tell her the sparrow was small because she was building wings the world was not allowed to see. Tell her the morning is coming. Tell her when it comes, she will not have to raise her voice. The world will raise its eyes. Tell me down below, the moment Adeze put the envelope on the counter, did you feel it? Did it hit you? Did the soup on the stove suddenly taste like 7 years? Because I sat with this story for a long time before I told it, and I want you to sit with it after I am gone. The quietest person in the room is the one you have to watch, not because she is dangerous, because she is the one who has been doing the building while everyone else was busy with the noise. I will see you in the next one.